The New Kingdom graphic, please? There it is. New Kingdom Egypt continued this military expansion, but it looked more like an empire, particularly when they headed south and took over land in an attempt to find gold and slaves. Probably the most expansive of the New Kingdom pharaohs was Hatshepsut, a woman who ruled Egypt for about 22 years and who expanded Egypt not through military might, but through trade. But most New Kingdom pharaohs, being dudes, focused on military expansion, which brought Egypt into conflicts with the Assyrians, who you'll remember from last week, and then the Persians, and then Alexander the Great, and finally the Romans. On the whole, Egypt probably would have been better off enjoying its geographical isolation and not trying to conquer new territory, but all of Egypt's friends had jumped off a bridge, so... One last thing about the New Kingdom. There was this crazy New Kingdom pharaoh named Akhenaten who tried to invent a new god for Egypt. Aten. Akhenaten was kind of the Kim Jong-il of ancient Egypt. Like, he had this feared police force and this big cult of personality, and also he was a nut job. Anyway, after his death, he was replaced by his wife, and then a daughter, and then a son, Tutankhaten, who turned his back on the weird god Aten and changed his name to Tutankhamun. And that is about all King Tut did before he died, probably around the age of 17. Honestly, the only reason King Tut is famous is that most pharaohs had their graves robbed by ancient people, and King Tut had his grave robbed by 20th century British people. Which brings us to the open letter. An open letter to King Tut. Oh, but first we gotta find out what Stan left for me in the secret compartment. The pen. I don't... Ah! The shock pen! Stan! That's a terrible, terrible gift for the secret compartment. Dear King Tut, I know that as pharaohs' lives go, yours was pretty poor. First, you had to marry your sister, which hopefully you weren't that psyched about. Plus, you had a cleft palate and probably scoliosis. Plus, you died before reaching adulthood. But dude, you have had the best afterlife ever. Since your body was discovered in 1922, you've become probably the most famous ancient person. There have been lots of books about you. Scholars have devoted their lives to you. Dude, we're so obsessed with you that we use this fancy new technology to scan your body and establish that you probably died of an infected broken leg and/or malaria. Also, you've inspired such seminal works of art as the Discovery Kids series Tutenstein, which my son forces me to watch. Your relics have been to 6 continents. So it all works out in the end, man. Well, I mean, you're still dead, so that kind of sucks. Best wishes, John Green. King Tut leads us nicely to the really crucial thing about Egyptian culture. Because King Tut lived right around the same time as the pyramids, right? Wrong. Remember, the pyramids were built around 2500 BCE during the Old Kingdom. King Tut died in 1322 BCE. 1,200 years later. That's 5.5 Americas, but because Egypt was so similar for so long, it all tends to blend together when we imagine it. Ancient Egypt lasted 1,000 years longer than Christianity has been around, and 800 years longer than that other super long-lived civilization, China. So there was an entire culture that lasted longer than Western civilization has existed, and it had run its course